Well, hello there, and welcome to a book launch livecast here at Ignite Press. I'm going to tell you, I've been looking forward to this interview for a long time. Ever since I met this author and we first started in discussions about her book, I knew this would make a fantastic livecast. So you're going to want to stick around. Now, before we jump in, I just want to let you know that we here at Ignite Press specialize in helping you bring your message to the world through books, the most timeless and powerful medium ever created. And so if you have a story, if you have a book that you'd like to get to the world, and particularly one that you want to use for your business or your brand, then reach out to us at ignitepress.us. That's ignitepress.us. Let's schedule a call. Let's talk. And maybe you and I will be having one of these live casts at some point in the future. Okay, so now on to the main event. Gwen Hutchins has an incredible story to share, and I am not going to attempt to tell it because I would fail miserably, but I do want you to know about her book, and that is Critical Air. Today is the launch day for it. Critical Air, a flight nurse's adventures from Alaska to Nepal. And it's available today, where you can pick up the paperback on Amazon, and the Kindle's at a special launch price of $1.99. So please, please, please get your copy, and particularly get the Kindle, as that will help her with her bestseller launch. Also, by the way, use the chat log here. Use the chat log to say hi, to cheer Gwen on, and to ask any questions, and I will try to pass those on to her. So Gwen, come on in. How are you today on this big day?
Oh, I am good. Thank you.
I love the surroundings you've got set for you. You've managed to find a reasonably warm and dry place. Gwen, whereabouts are you located?
I live in Wisconsin, right near Madison, Wisconsin, in a little town called Stoughton. We live on a little farm outside of town. So yeah.
And you've not always lived in Wisconsin based upon your book. It seems like you've been everywhere.
Well, I have been everywhere, but my roots have always been in Wisconsin. I worked in Alaska, and I lived somewhat in Alaska, but I would fly back and forth on my downtime. So even though I spent a great deal of time in Alaska, my roots have always been here in Wisconsin.
Excellent. Well, let's get into your story. Let's start by just talking about who you are professionally. Like, how'd you begin? Actually, how'd you begin as a nurse, and not just the normal nurse in a clinic or a hospital? How'd you get started with this?
Well, yeah, I started working when I was 15 years old. I worked on a work permit at the Stoughton Hospital as aide on weekends. And so it just was something that I kind of knew. And then when I went off to college, I actually went into education because I thought, I really don't want to I don't want to go into nursing. Well, by the time my time to find a job in elementary education came up, their jobs were really hard to come by. The closest one was in Wyoming. And so I decided to go back into nursing, and because it's something I knew, I guess. And that's kind of how it happened. It wasn't any big revelation. It's just, it was one of those things where you do what you got to do to get a job.
Well, and it's been an interesting job, to say the least. So tell us about what a flight nurse is. There are going to be some people who have no idea what this variety of nursing is.
Well, for me, what I did was regular nursing up until I was in my mid 40s, actually. I worked in critical care in ICUs and in emergency room settings. I did some research. So I did a variety of just kind of the normal everyday type nursing. And then after the kids were out of the house, I decided I wanted to do something special with my career. So I took a travel position in Ketchikan, Alaska. And that's kind of where the flight part of the nursing got started, when I was approached by a physician there that liked my skill set and decided that I would be a good fit to go out into the Aleutian chain of islands and set up a base out in Dutch Harbor, Alaska.
Well, tell us how that progressed.
Oh, well, I started doing a lot of extra training so that my skill set was okay. And then I started going out to Dutch Harbor and started to set up the base out there, which required getting a lot of equipment out there and hiring staff and that sort of thing.
So tell us, I know you've got a bunch of stories. In fact, I've got people asking me to have her share some of these stories. And so let's get into one now, if you don't mind. You want to tell us the story? You and I were talking earlier about Slim. You want to tell us about Slim's story in the book?
Oh, yeah, Slim is actually, he was my very first flight patient that I took out. And I wasn't even quite done with my orientation when we got the call that this gentleman had what I will call a really bad day. He was out in Dutch Harbor and the weather was just horrible. And he had been in a bar fight first and got injured in a bar fight and then got thrown out of the bar into a driving snow. He ended up getting hit by a taxi, and the taxi driver felt a lump and backed up over him again to see what she ran into. And so that was the start of his day. And he ended up getting taken to Cold Bay because the weather was too bad for us to fly in there. And the Coast Guard ended up taking him to Cold Bay, which was about an hour up the chain from Dutch Harbor toward Anchorage. So I actually met Slim in a Quonset hut on the end of a runway in Cold Bay, where he was kind of in pieces.
Oh my goodness! And so, what ended up happening with him? And here you are, you're having to provide these services in not necessarily the best of circumstances. This is not like you had not like you've got him in a ER room somewhere.
Right. No, this is literally in a Quonset hut. And we had the equipment that we had to haul in from the plane, and he obviously needed a chest tube. And while I had assisted in a lot of chest tubes in my life, I had never placed a chest tube. That was something a pulmonologist usually did. So I'm in this Quonset hut with a sat phone tucked under my chin, listening to a doctor tell me where to put the first incision and where to put the tubes and that sort of thing. And in the meantime, he needed to be intubated and given lots of medication for pain, and to help him breathe, basically. So it was just it was my very first patient, and it was just unbelievable chaos, but it all seemed to come together. It was funny. I had a really good seasoned paramedic with me, and we worked well together. And we had two pilots that were pointing lights at the work area. So, we all worked together to get this guy kind of scraped together and into Anchorage, which was 3 hours away by plane yet.
So you had to do all of these things at a Quonset hut on the end of the runway. I assume it's still crazy weather outside, and
it was driving snow. Yeah.
This is nuts. And the pilots are holding flashlights up to give you enough light, and you're talking on a sat phone to be directed as how to intubate or do a chest tube for the first time
Yeah,
without assistance.
I'd intubated lots of patients before, but I had never placed a chest tube, which is a tube in the side of the chest. It's a surgical procedure
Yeah.
to try and reinflate the lung.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you terrified?
You know, I was too afraid to be terrified. You know, there's times in your life when you just suck it up and do it because there's nobody else that's going to do it.
Well, and here's the deal. I know enough about critical care nursing that you've been in circumstances before where you had to move outside of your comfort zone and do things that perhaps you didn't have the, you know, the luxury of, here, let's walk through a step-by-step, procedure.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So I'm sure that you came to that point with your experience and also a good amount of adrenaline carrying you through, carrying through the fear. That's incredible. How did Slim do?
You know, Slim made it back to Anchorage, and we had him fairly well stabilized by the time we got him back to Anchorage. But I'm sure both of his legs were broken, and he probably had lots of other injuries that needed to be attended to. So my guess is he probably survived. You know, the one thing is we really never find out what happens to our patients unless we happen to be taking another patient in sometime and the same ER doc is there and you can say, hey, what happened to the guy that we brought in last week? And if he remembers or he or she remembers, sometimes they'll say, oh, yeah. This is what happened, So that's kind of the only way we ever found out.
Well, and I guess that makes sense because you're truly on the front line of this, right? And your job is help stabilize and transport, I imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't get the luxury always of seeing the final outcome. All right, so
Right.
now we had Malia asked about a specific story, and she wondered about. She said maybe you'd want to talk about what happened in the Philippines. Is that one that you want to share?
Yeah, the Philippines was probably one of my last actual trips that I took because it ended up kind of badly in that I ended up getting detained in the Philippines and extorted for money. And it just happened to be a time when there was unrest in Cebu City. And there was a militia that had kind of taken over the airport area and had targeted especially medical personnel. And I found out later that two doctors from Doctors Without Borders, I guess the same thing happened to them too, where they were held, put in prison for a period of time, and basically terrified and then extorted for money. So, yeah.
Holy smokes! Now you have been you've been all over the world. Why don't you just list for us some of the places where you've done your nursing?
Well, yeah, I've been to China, Nepal, South Africa, almost everywhere in the Caribbean and in Mexico and South America. Lots of places in Europe. And I've been to Mongolia, but not to pick up a patient. That was a separate trip where my husband and I were trying to figure out where we should go with all of our frequent flyer miles. And we came up with Mongolia because it was the only place neither of us had ever been.
Okay, so let me ask you this: was there any time when you were doing your work that you feared for your life?
Well, I honestly feared for my life in the Philippines. I really honestly felt like I would be one of those tickers at the bottom of the screen where it said U.S. nurse found in ditch in Philippines or something like that. I was that was probably one of the most terrifying things that I've ever had to live through. Honestly,
Oh my goodness.
I was interrogated and it was I was put in a cell with about 8 other men, and it was just a terrifying situation.
Oh my goodness. Gwen, how long were you held?
Just 24 hours.
Yeah.
I say just, but yeah,
Longest 24 hours of your life?
it was. And the thing is, they denied me access to the U.S. consulate, and my family didn't know what was going on. So
Oh, incredible. How did that end up resolving?
I ended up paying them $10,000 to get out of there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I'm glad you did. You know, wow. I can't imagine being in that circumstance. Well, let's turn the corner a little bit. A lot of your career has to do with aviation, and in fact, I remember as this cover contest was going, as we put together this beautiful cover, there was some discussion about, well, what airplanes can we use and helicopters? Because you've got airplanes and helicopters and jets and all sorts of stuff. Um, does the airplane become your surgical suite or your hospital room while you're transporting patients?
Absolutely. What we had in Dutch Harbor anyway was a King Air, and we had that King Air equipped so that we were a little mini ICU in the air. We had pretty much everything that we needed to do critical care and try to keep people alive till we could get them to Anchorage. So yeah, it was a pretty well equipped airplane, um, and they are really reliable too. So
Yeah, have you had to do some pretty crazy journeys with patients? I'd love to hear some of this.
oh yeah, I have done so many different uh, transports that are really unusual. Um, I remember one time we ended up going out further down the chain to pick up a patient that had been on leave from a boat for about 2 weeks, and apparently he had done nothing but drink alcohol during this 2 weeks off. And so when he got back on the boat, was going into DTS, and his behavior when we got to him, his behavior was so violent that we ended up having to sedate him and intubate him to get him back into Anchorage, which is thing that you try not to have to do, but he became a threat to the people on the airplane because he was just so violent. So that one
I
sticks
can't
out.
I can't imagine if you've got someone like that in a small airplane going nuts and you're
Yeah,
having to restrain and control. And the pilot and the controls are 5 feet that way. It's like,
right.
um, that,
Exactly.
yeah, I could see that'd be a little bit of a scary situation. You could have a patient go nuts and take you all down. Well,
Exactly.
everybody, wow. So, everyone, we're talking here today with Gwen Hutchins, and the book is Critical Air: The Flight Nurse's Adventures from Alaska to Nepal. You can pick up the book today. The Kindle's on a special launch price. It's $1.99, and you can grab that. The paperback is also available there. Now, I will share with you that this book is a terrific book, not just for for interesting and entertaining and all of that, it shares also a higher purpose. And Gwen, one of the reasons you wrote this book, you told me, was really to help people that are considering this career, right? It was to talk
Right,
to
right.
other flight nurses. Tell us about that.
Well, after I finally ended up going into nursing, it became my passion, believe it or not. And I feel like it's one of the best careers that you could ever choose. You can do almost anything with a nursing career, from patient care to flight nursing, which is patient care, but school nurse. You can do legal work, or there's just such a wide variety of things that you can do in nursing, that I just feel like it's one of those careers that you can enjoy no matter what.
Yeah. Now, and it's also, it's a career that it helps to know what those options are, right? Because they are so broad. You and I have talked
Right.
about my daughter, right? And she's in Ecuador right now, and I think last week she was working with a tribe, up in the Andes, and
Mm-hmm.
a
Yeah.
month ago working with a tribe down in the Amazon, and it's amazing the types of things that can be done as
Yeah.
nurses.
And I'm sure she has stories. Holy cow.
Oh, yeah, she's already shared a few, a few with me that are entertaining, right? Because it's just this crazy stuff that happens.
Exactly.
Now,
Yeah.
also, Gwen, you wrote this for another purpose, and that is the Hutchins Foundation. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Oh, thank you. Yes. My husband and I started a foundation several years ago now, and our purpose was to help at-risk youth. And we've been working on it for several years. We do fundraisers that help raise money to send kids to camp, for instance. There's a lot of kids that can't afford to go to a camp, and sometimes a single camp experience can really change the trajectory of somebody's life. And this is something that we found. And so we've really enjoyed going down this avenue. We also, on an individual basis, will help kids get gear if they want to go into some sort of athletics, whether it be shoes or even an athletic bra. Frequently, I'll take a kid to a clothing store or an athletic store, and okay, what do you need? And she will say, well, I would really like to go into tennis, but I don't have an athletic bra and I don't have any socks. And so this is the sort of thing that, while we're not big, I feel really grateful that we've been able to help individuals kind of on a one-on-one basis.
I love that, and I think it's important that people understand you've dedicated the proceeds from this book to the foundation. So
Correct.
people need to know if they're buying the book, they're contributing directly to the nonprofit. And I'll share with you that proceeds on a book like this. Each book probably will put anywhere from $5 to $7 into the foundation for use for something like this. So definitely want to encourage people, buy the book, share the book. Here's the deal. I think, Gwen, and this is what I love about your story. I love this about the book, that I think that is both. It is entertaining for people who know nothing about nursing or rescue or survival, because of the survival and stories in here and travel and all the other things that you've done. But also really a great gift for people, and particularly anyone considering a medical career. I'm going to make sure to get copies for my daughter, the nurse, and also my son, who is a PA. I think that both of them will love this. My only fear is that then they're going to pull up stakes and go to Alaska or Nepal, and I won't see them again. So that would be my great concern. So, Gwen, are there any other stories that you would like to regale us with? I remember a story from
Oh,
Beatrix in your
it,
book. You want to talk about
you know,
Beatrix?
oh, she ended up being a very close friend of mine. This was a doctor actually that was on a cross country motorcycle trip, and she ended up getting into a bit of an accident in Sault Ste. Marie. And I flew up there and was flying. She lived in Boston, in the Boston area, and was going to fly her back to Boston. And we were going through Detroit, and we got up to elevation, and she turned blue. And we ended up asking the pilot to lower the plane down to a lower elevation to help with her breathing. And we got a priority landing and got her into the emergency room there in Detroit. And anyway, we ended up driving her back to Boston with a driver and a limousine. She had lung injuries and a wrist injury and some leg injuries. And anyway, the driver of the limousine fell asleep, and we went in the ditch along the way. And so it just ended up being kind of like a harrowing experience.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Lady. Yeah, it was just like everything that could go wrong went wrong. And then
So what happened? So what happened when the car went in the ditch?
Oh, well, fortunately, it was like just a ravine, and he was able to drive right out. And then I kind of made you will stop at the next exit, and we will get out, and you need to sleep. So I forced him to get us a hotel, and he needed to sleep because he was going to try and just drive all straight through from Detroit to Boston. So it just became one of those adventures that was like, what? And then in the middle of it, I had been apparently bitten by some sort of a spider, and I had a huge rash and a red streak going up my abdomen, and I was running a fever. And so fortunately, she was a doctor and was able to pull into a Walgreens and write a script for me to get started on antibiotics.
What?
Yeah.
So here you are transporting your patient who cannot be flown because of the lung injuries, who you're getting a car, then the car goes off the road because of okay, and you've been bitten by some sort of poisonous spider, and you're seeing the evidence of the poison,
Yeah.
and your patient's treating you. Like
Exactly.
so literally, she wrote the script for you to go in and get your antibiotics.
Yeah. Thank God, because that could have been really it was spreading fast. So so yeah.
So like it had to be does that mean like brown recluse or black widow or like what? I don't know.
You never really know. You just know that something's definitely wrong. You've got this bullseye rash in the middle of your abdomen and a red streak going straight up toward your heart. It's like, oh, this is blood poisoning.
Oh my goodness. I can't believe this. And you just happened, she had a script book with her or you did?
No, we actually had the pharmacist. I went in and I told him the situation. The pharmacist actually came out to the vehicle and had a script and handed it to her, and she had to give him her DEA numbers and that sort of thing. But
I'm glad she was conscious. I'm glad she was. Oh my goodness! So now the two of you have become friends.
Yes. Yep.
Oh my goodness! Well, I'll tell you, this has been fantastic. I'm just grateful to get to meet you, Gwen, and that we could have so much fun with this. thank you again for sharing your stories through your book.
Oh,
I think
thanks.
that it's great. Now, is there anybody you want to thank out there, in this process? Because I know this doesn't all happen. This doesn't all
Oh,
happen by your
goodness.
lonesome.
Yeah. Oh my, yeah. No, there are so many people that I owe this book to. Probably first and foremost, my husband, whose constant hounding kept me on track. Every time I would come home with a story, he would hound me to get it in. You got to write a book. So and my of course my daughter, who her just her friendship and unbelievable love and support has kept me going through the years. And Dana Verstegen, who, oh my goodness, what a creative person she is. She, for I think almost 2 years, would come to the house once a week, and she would interview me, so that to try and pull out the details of where what I was doing and where I had been, and we'd record it, so that you could go back and you could read it and say, oh yes, this is what needs to be put in the book. And things like, well, what did it smell like? And it's just one of those things where you step back and you think, oh yeah, what does a 5-star hotel in Yemen smell like?
I'm curious.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what a truly good interviewer journalist does, is has that ability to pull out details that you don't think about. So yeah, um, uh, I'm so grateful to all the people that have just been so encouraging, um, for me, to get to this point in my life. And I guess I look at this like nurses rarely get that send off when they retire. They rarely get the big lunch or the high five. You did a great job. So I feel like this is kind of my send off, in my career, to say, okay, yep, I'm done. I can move on to other things now.
You make a really good point, because so as a nurse you've worked for a lot of different employers over the years,
Hmm.
and for a lot of different supervisors and a lot of different
Yeah,
circumstances, and a send off or a thank you or a retirement from any one of those cannot possibly account for the totality of everything that you've
exactly.
accomplished.
Yeah. So.
It just can't. So that makes perfect sense. And by the way, Dana has been just fantastic throughout this process. And anyone watching this, if you're want to be connected with Dana, just reach out directly to Gwen or to us or at Ignite Press. We'd be happy to make that introduction, provided that she's available for another project, because she's in demand. So I
Oh
think
my goodness,
it's
she works
terrific.
for Vanderbilt University, and she is busy. Man, she is smart.
Well, love her. Love I'm just obviously we met her through this project, and really grateful for that. Well, Gwen, it is time for us to wrap up our time here. If people want to reach you, would that be through the foundation? And what's the
Yep.
web address for that?
HutchinsFoundation.com.
Okay, I'm going to put that in the chat here, hutchinsfoundation.com. All right, and that is there. So everybody, grab your copy of Critical Air. And Gwen, thank you so much again for joining us here and trusting us with your story, your baby. We really are grateful for that, and we feel honored.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
All right. Well, everybody, grab your copy today of Critical Air. That is available on Amazon in paperback and Kindle. And make sure to share it with others. And then if you've got a story that you'd like to share through the powerful medium of books, if you've got an idea that would help build your business and brand through books, then please reach out to us at ignitepress.us. That's ignitepress.us. Thank you again for joining us on this livecast.